So, in the previous video I talked about my escapades to Tirana, capital city of Albania, where I met a minister, checked out some bunkers and ate myself fat and round.
So, a few days later I rented a car. As anywhere. But everything went smoothly. The thing of it is that you have, like on the freeways, you would have 2 lanes plus some extra. And the left lane is the fast lane. And the right lane is the shit lane. The shit lane, the slow lane, which I would have loved to be driving, speeding on, because I was speeding maybe 10 kilometers an hour as usual. But people there, they speed 30 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. So I couldn't use the fast lane. And incidentally, the fast lane is the only lane with actual working asphalt without potholes. So it was a nightmare when some person with a Mercedes, because everybody there drives Mercedes since, Jurassic times, I don't know. And they were like honking the horn behind me and like, get out of the way. And the thing is that when I'm driving 130, and you have to scoot over to a lane which has potholes, which is like I don't even know what. That's always a risk. But yeah. The water was so clean and so clear, and it wasn't polluted because it didn't have shitloads of tourists polluting it. So if you just got over the fact that somebody threw Coca-Cola cans all over the beach, sort of, and you went into the water, you might have an occasional plastic something floating around, but most of the time the water was so clear and it was so beautiful and untouched and warm and calm. It was a great place to snorkel. And people were really friendly. What I found to be very interesting overall in Albania was how knowledgeable people were. It's as if they had been spending their lifetime in a library learning about the world because they couldn't get out of Albania or something. They knew about little shit things that I had no idea anybody knew anything about. I got the feeling they wanted to know what it's like on the outside. What is it like? How is it there? As if they were very, very much striving to go out and find out themselves.
So, in Durrës, I met this hippie. Well, actually the guy was a war veteran, a few years older than me. And he owned a souvenir shop of sorts. And by sorts, I mean on the bottom shelves, he had this random selection of antique relics. And by antique relics, I mean like antique old amphoras that he had found on the ocean floor in the sea while he was spearfishing. This guy was selling museum stuff.
He was a cool guy, very serene and very knowledgeable, as like so many Albanians were. He was just so fed up. Apparently, ever since the war, he thought the whole war was such bullshit. And like anybody else who had to go, he had to go because he was forced to. What else are you gonna do? And now he owned his own shop. He was self-sufficient. He gardened his own vegetables. He hunted his own food. Because he didn't want to support. He wanted to support the global economy and the economy of Albania as little as possible. I guess he just thought it was such bullshit. He stopped voting, and he found his peace within his religion, and that's where he was. He did that, and then he kept to himself mostly. And he went spearfishing himself. And sometimes when he went diving, he found antique relics at the bottom of the ocean, which he didn't report to the Albanian authorities. And sometimes I asked them, like, what do you do with them? I mean, you obviously you can't sell them because any tourist who buys them will get caught in the customs, at the customs. And he said, well, he sold 2 things. He just keeps them mostly for himself, but he has sold 2 things. One was a military general from, I can't remember what it was Germany or Russia or whatever, same shit. And the other one was a diplomat from somewhere. I thought I don't know, that's just awesome. So I ended up buying some old handicraft from him, and he gave me one of those postcards they sold. And the postcard had pictures of the interior of a museum there, where photography was prohibited, because he had brought like an old Nokia 6233 or whatever and snapped shots in secret and put them on a postcard with his name as a copyright owner. So...
Gubben. Gubben. Vad är du för det? Vad är du för det? Vad är du för det?
A happy dog. A happy dog. Caressed by a friendly Labrador. In Durrës, I wasn't so lucky with the dogs. In fact, there was an Italian woman walking on the beach, and I was walking not on the beach, but by the street by the beach. And this dog saw me and ran after me and started biting me, nibbling on me. And I'm not afraid of dogs, so I will grab it and I'll like push it to the or shove it to the floor. Like, you do not do that. But he kept like yapping and jumping and trying to bite me all the time. And this woman, this Italian woman, she was just yelling the dog's name as if she had control, pretending that she had control over it. She had no control over it, and she didn't apologize for it. Nothing. She didn't try to restrain the dog. She did not put the leash on the dog. Nothing. She behaved like a complete idiot. People like that should not have dogs. And sadly, I found many misbehaving Italians in Albania. They have a lot of Italian tourists, so obviously they would have good people and bad people. And like, I saw a lot of misbehaving, like arrogant Italian people. There was this bar street right next to the water. People drove there with their friends and family, girlfriends, boyfriends, spent some time, had some drinks, and then drove off. And my place was right next, sort of next to that place, and so I went there for a drink. I entered the bar. The bartender asked, like, what would you like? And I was asking, do you have like a drink list or something? I don't know what their cocktail culture is in Albania. And this older man, beer-bellied older man, probably his boss, comes up and forbids him to talk to me and asks me, what do you want? It's okay, fair enough, you know what, I'll have a whiskey sour. And so he turns around and tells the bartender she wants a whiskey sour. I was forbidden to tell the bartender myself I wanted a whiskey sour. So I got a pinkish drink with like pineapple and passion fruit. This is not a whiskey sour. And the waiter says, yeah, this is a whiskey sour. I said, this is not a whiskey sour. It was tall in highball glass. You are of course right. This is a whiskey sour. And it was a good drink. I'll give them that. You know, probably better than a whiskey sour would have been anyways. But from Durrës, I went to Shkodra. I initially wanted to cross over to Montenegro to visit a cemetery/graveyard, which is like an old, ancient, but old traditional Albanian graveyard. But I couldn't, because I couldn't pass the border with my car. So I left that for a later time. And I walked around in Shkodra. It's a very touristic place, I guess, because people from Montenegro, I guess, come down there. It's the northern border. Touristic in the sense that they have like broad streets selling tourist stuff, and there are a lot of tourists there. And then I went up to the fort.
The fort was huge and so vast, overlooking the city of Shkodra, a very beautiful view. It's now closed at nights and guarded as a museum, free of charge, but back in the day, apparently lots of junkies considered this fort to be their haven. While on my way up the hill to the fort, by the way, leave your car down there and walk. And if you're too lazy to walk, then you don't deserve to see any of the fort anyways. There's a parking lot up there, which, charges money for car parking places. But it's also very tight, and so there's a chance that somebody scratches your car or you scratch somebody else's car. So anyways, on my way up the hill, I met this young guy who was sitting by the road offering parking halfway up the hill. And he spoke perfect English. And as it happens, his family had escaped to Canada when he was just a boy. He was in his late 20s now. And so he came back to Albania every year for to visit, I guess. We talked for a long time and traded Facebook details, etc., etc. And he was following my Stuck in Serbia vlog at times, and he was asking me like what are the Serbs like? He was really, because I guess it sort of remains a mystery, somebody who's supposed to be sort of your enemy is like, why, for what? I mean, can a whole nation be the enemy of a 6-year-old boy? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, And I guess maybe some Albanians are very afraid of going to Serbia, and I met Serbs who are very afraid of going to Albania. And I think that is such a shame. That is such bullshit. I don't mean to put that on the human beings being afraid. I mean, that situation is such bullshit situation. Anyways, cool guy. We ended up talking for a long time, but then I had to get back because I was not staying the night in Shkodra. I had to drive back to Durrës. So back in Durrës, I was again off, this time to Vlora, taking a detour via UNESCO World Heritage Berat. As beautiful as it is, the atmosphere of the people there just, according to me, I just felt like I drove there for 2.5, like I took a route around when I was going down to Vlora, and I took this detour just to drive there and then 2.5 hours extra. And I felt like, as soon as I got out of the car, I felt like, fuck this shit, I'm leaving. But once I drove there, I wanted to stay there for some time, so I gave it 30 minutes and some drone footage, had a coffee, and people were more inconsiderate and rude because it was like a tourist trap. There were so many tourists there, so many tourist buses. And I guess the moral of a place goes down with tourism in general. And I just didn't like it. I felt like I didn't meet anybody who was an a-hole, but I felt like this place is more a-hole than other places. I'm gonna leave. And so I left. And according to the map, there was this road that will take me sort of straight to Vlora, or I could take a long detour again along the actually this time very, very nice freeway. But I thought, I'm gonna take this. It's probably less of a road, but it was like hardly a road. On the smaller roads, obviously, you would have maybe a sheep farmer or something that would semi-block the way. That's normal. I ended up driving like 40 kilometers an hour because you just couldn't drive any faster. And then eventually I got to Vlora. And Vlora, you see that this is where the Riviera starts, because the the gas prices are going steadily up. And then you saw everything became more and more pretentious and more pretentious, and I didn't really like it there, I have to say. It felt super pretentious, tourist trap Mediterranean places, and I spent 1 or 2 nights there, and I could have spent those nights in Durrës instead, or driven somewhere else. That was not a place for me. But when I drove from Vlora back down up to Durrës, I took the highway, which was very, very, very nice, very fresh, laid asphalt. And in the middle of this place where you drive like 130, 140, there was this horse alone walking in the highway. Nobody was riding it. There was nobody in sight. It was just walking there. And the most weird part was that it didn't mind any of the cars. It was just like, yeah, what's up? One of the sad things I found in Albania is actually something that you don't have to take my word for it. If you want to travel yourself, go there, see it with your own eyes. If you don't want to travel there, you can take a look at Google Maps. And you'll see in the middle of nowhere all these buildings, super new buildings being built but never being ready. You see shopping malls, 5-star hotels, you know, like golf clubs or whatever, and they're never built. They just start building them. And this, you know, this screams money laundering, obviously. And this is a very sad thing because this is like tax money that will never be paid, and tax money that will never be paid will never, you know, receive the daylight in Albania for the Albanian people. I hope this gets sorted out. I really hope this gets sorted out, because this is a horrible tragedy. This is a horrible crime against humanity, actually. To put it diplomatically, I would say that I met a lot of people who seemed to be very dissatisfied with the current regime, the current government, the government before that, or the government before that as well. Some of them expressed the words criminals. And it seemed that many people, like the mean salary or wages of a normal person was very, very low. I met somebody at a bakery who worked at a bakery 5-6 days a week, and she said she earns around 130 euros a month. Obviously this will be different depending on region, but still, many people escape the country because of the economical situation.